It's indeed an honour to be able to interview you in this forum, the Institute of Cultural Diplomacy. Ireland first question, has quite a large global presence for being such a small country, looking at like St. Patrick's Day celebrated around the world and such. And do you think that this helps with the cultural diplomacy efforts, or does it create problems when people have preconceived notions about what Ireland is? For example, the leprechauns and diddly-dee music.
Thank you. It's indeed a great honour and pleasure for me to be here also today. No, I don't think so is the answer. I think the cultural diplomacy is much enhanced by our diaspora around the world. Ireland certainly punches way above its weight in that sense because unfortunately, so many of our Irish have immigrated to the four corners of the world, and we're quite well known for our ability for our education, our ability to work, and so much more. I think the day of the leprechaun and the diddly-dee music is somewhat a traditional aspect, but I don't think it's one that influence. I think St. Patrick's Day is a fantastic event. I mean, there's so many countries who would love to have their countries celebrated, their national saint or their national day celebrated in so many different ways around the world. I mean, it's one of the largest days in New York. So, I think that's huge, for our culture, for our economy, you look at the amount of people, the amount of companies. I was just saying there's 600 of the biggest companies in the world based in Ireland. Most of the multinationals coming from the States are there. So and the St. Patrick's Day people feel they know the Irish people. It gives them a bit of understanding. Obviously we're the only English-speaking country in Europe. That also helps. But I think it's a really positive thing, and I think there's a lot of countries that would envy us of St. Patrick's Day.
Thank you. And now, unfortunately, as we've seen recently in the news, that rioting has once more erupted throughout Northern Ireland, especially in Belfast. And do you think cultural diplomacy can be used to tackle these issues, or is there harder, more mainline force needed? And looking at the relationship and peace process between Northern Ireland and the Republic, do you think cultural diplomacy plays a role there as well? And bringing the two countries together and fostering the mutual understanding. How can we use cultural diplomacy more efficiently there?
I think cultural diplomacy has a huge part to play. We're obviously in a transition period after the peace process. Unfortunately, from time to time, we do see the odd riot again in Northern Ireland. But it certainly has moved on like 1,000 times from where it was, and it's fantastic. I visited Belfast this year to see the Titanic experience, and it was just amazing. There's lots going on between the North and South. You've got Intertrade Ireland, there's dancing competitions, there's lots of cultural, going on between Dublin and Belfast and so on. And I think now that there's peace, there's more people willing to visit the North, which will give us greater understanding. But as I said, we're in transition. It's still relatively new. So I would imagine in the decades ahead, we will see lots of difference in that regard,
And Ireland has organised the Gathering for 2013. I know you mentioned that earlier as well. And how do you think a country's diaspora, how important is the diaspora for cultural diplomacy?
The Gathering is a government strategy, which is being organised and is organised as a website set up already. And every community has been invited to hold a festival or, competition and invite the people who have left their native land back to Ireland or back to the location they were from, or just come and visit. Even if you have no Irish blood in you, just come and visit and see the culture that we have from the different types of culture, whether it's song, dance, music, whatever. I'm really looking forward to it in the year. I think it's going to be a really good success. I can only imagine that St. Patrick's Day in Ireland next year will be pretty special. So, the interest in this is phenomenal. Again, I was out in Australia during the summer, and then some of the Australian parliamentarians were back visiting Dublin, and they were all talking about the Gathering. And we're trying to, in the constituency that I live in Charleville, we're trying to set up the Bishop Mannix summer school for next year. Bishop Mannix was a famous bishop who left Charleville when he was quite young and went to Melbourne and did wonderful work in Melbourne. So much so that they have a statue to him in the famous cathedral in Melbourne, St. Patrick's Cathedral, which is quite an honour. So, I would imagine we'll see a lot of visits to Ireland next year. We have the European presidency. I mean, it's a great year to do it. I mean, we really have a time to show off Ireland in a new light after coming through the economic place we've come from. And I think the Irish people need need hope and they need positivity right now, and this is a new focus so that we can leave the past where it is and move forward in a different place.
Well, I'm certainly looking forward to it. And you mentioned there the economic recession, and I was just going to expand on that a little bit. Like, as I was saying, Ireland at the minute, or certainly the past year, has got a bit of a dip in its reputation. It's been the so-called the pigs group with Portugal and Greece and everything, the bank bailouts and everything. Are you going to be using cultural diplomacy to rectify this? You know, what do you think is the future of Irish cultural diplomacy? How are you going to use it to sort of bolster the reputation?
I think we've moved on a little bit from the days of the pigs, or at least I hope we have. I mean, 2008 and 2009 were pretty tough. The economy certainly is on the way back. You can see that in the growth, little bit of growth that we had last year, but at least we're growing, and it has to start somewhere. You know, we have huge international foreign direct investment into Ireland, the largest since 2002, in 2011 and in 2012. We're looking forward next year to increasing our growth. There's been a huge focus. We've just put through the budget last week, or was just announced, which was there was a huge focus on the SME sector and lots of incentives for people to set up business. So we're certainly from an economic point of view, I think we're moving forward. Culture is really important to Ireland from that point of view, because as we bring our international companies to Ireland and they set up, you know, they need to have more than just work. So, you know, be able to go to the theatres and put on shows and have concerts and all of that, you know, is really, really important. And the government is continuing to invest in that and will continue to invest in that, because art sales around the world, river dance, all of this is really, like, it's the first taste that people see of Ireland. So I can safely say that even though we are through challenging times, the spending in that area won't change. Obviously, we'd like to put more into it, but right now that's not possible. But we certainly see it as a huge part of the Irish economic recovery. You know, and you know, as we mentioned before, the diaspora is just phenomenal, and it's great, you know, to be able to look at that now for the first time and really hone in on it and see how we can make that build. Because as our ministers go around the world, there have been, you know, people say, how can we help? The multinational community will say, how can we help? So we need to have a way, we need to create a vehicle for people to help, whether that's helping them, the SME sectors or the businesses, to advice and soft supports like mentoring or whatever. People are willing to help. So, you know, when you have that much goodwill towards your country, it gives you hope, and it gives you determination to get through the tough times. And, you know, I'm only a new member of Parliament, so putting through a budget like we did last week is very tough. And it's very challenging. And, you know, you have to look at your principles and kind of question your own morals at times. But you do it in the belief that I have in the Irish people and in the resilience that we have, and that we will get through it, and we will come out of this a better nation and a better people, because we're going to embrace our communities again. And unfortunately, during a time of the so-called, you know, wealth that we had, or probably didn't have, but thought we had, we kind of lost our community spirit and giving time to people. It was when history will tell, it was probably a really bad time in Ireland, even though we didn't see it when we were going through it. But I think the history will say it as it was, you know. So I'm really glad that we've kind of had an opportunity to rethink ourselves as a people, and to realise, you know, we lost our way, and now we're back on track and we're heading in the right direction. And it's fantastic, again, to mention the gathering, to see communities working together and seeing what can be achieved. You know, and from little seeds, big things grow, you know, so it's important from that point of view.
Okay. Well, that's the end of our interview. Thank you very much. I'm also really looking forward to 2013, and I agree with you on many points. I have to say, I was studying in Dublin in 2004, 2008, and it was really, I think now when I go back, it feels more like real Ireland. At the end of, you know, really 2004, 2008, there was so much spending, there was so much money. It was really, I think things got a little out of hand, and now we can definitely see it's a return to the roots and the more traditional things. But yeah, thank you very much for your time, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your time in Berlin.
Thank you very much. Thank you.